What is up, my beautiful people? We have yet again made it through another week of this disastrous Trump administration, which means Donald Trump has now been in office for only 25 weeks. He's got 183 weeks left to go. And of course, there are 1,280 days until hopefully the moron-in-chief marches his ass right out of that White House. Now, we have made it to another weekly roundup, but today in particular, I actually have a special announcement. You guys may have noticed that I have dropped from 2 videos per day back down to 1 video per day. My thumbnails are starting to look a little bit different. We're starting to play around with that, but also we're looking at how we can post our content to other platforms like Instagram and TikTok. And then on top of all that, I've also launched a Substack. And I know you guys have heard this pitch 1,000 times over from 1,000 different creators. But I also know that fighting back against this MAGA media machine, it has got to be a team effort. And I know there are people out there who are more than willing to support creators like me who are pushing a pro-democracy, pro-progressive message to the rest of the country. This is the way that we fight back against this backsliding into authoritarianism. So if you are willing and you are able, you can head over to politiscape.substack.com. You can subscribe for as little as $5 per month. I was thinking about doing a Patreon, but it seems like Substack is becoming like a multimedia hub, and it seemed like a more versatile platform, so we're going to go ahead and try this platform out for now. And if you aren't comfortable jumping over to a new platform, we've also opened up the memberships right there on YouTube, so you can subscribe for as little as $3 a month there if you are comfortable in doing so. And as I will continue to say, I appreciate every single one of you guys out there, whether you are a paid subscriber or not, and we just need to keep fighting back against the MAGA media machine. That is what it comes down to. That is how we are going to save our democracy. So let's go ahead and jump in, guys, to the weekly roundup for this week, and I wanted to go ahead and start off with this photo because what's going on here? Why does Laura Trump look like such a giant compared to Trump? What's going on here? It looks so hilarious to me. Obviously, there's some sort of optical illusion going on here, but for somebody like Donald Trump who cares so much about how he appears on camera, I am just surprised that he let this setup go. It is absolutely hilarious to me. Now let's go ahead and move on to Pete Hegseth, who was cutting some sort of commercial or some sort of promotion in front of the Pentagon.
Well, I'll grab this. It's the memo. Senior officers must overcome bureaucratic risk aversion in budgeting, weaponeering, and training. So here's the memo we're signing today, delivered via drones. Here on the front lawn of the Pentagon, with some of our great warfighters flying them. This is the future. We're in the fight. We're in the fight to win it. I'm never going to back down.
What are we doing here, folks? What is this nonsense? And I have a feeling that this is the exact reason why Donald Trump selected somebody like Pete Hegseth to be the Department of Defense. For shit like this. And I have nothing against our military. I think it is important that we have a strong and capable military, and we absolutely do. And if we're going to cut commercials about our military, maybe we should have some military members involved in those commercials. Why is Pete Hegseth leading the charge on this? And it is so damn corny. Why is the drone flying in front of the camera like that? Why is he grabbing the note like he's going to deliver a memo to the president by drone? I mean, it just makes us look like such a joke. I mean, I feel like it degrades our military in a sense. We've got a buffoon like Pete Hegseth parading himself out in front of the Pentagon, drawing down notes out of the sky from a drone, and it just looks weird, it looks weak, and it looks pathetic. These people should not be taken seriously at all. Let's go ahead and move on to Randy Fine. Get a load of what he has to say about Illhan Omar.
I believe that when someone blocks the road, and keeps a pregnant woman from getting to the hospital, that's a form of terrorism. They're not all the same. It's not the same as blowing yourself up, but I believe that when you adopt the policies that Illhan Omar has adopted, when you support Hamas in the way that she has, you're supporting terrorism. And the people who are in Qatar running Hamas, they aren't blowing anything up, but they're still terrorists. And so, yes, I believe that she supports Muslim terror. And I think if you support Muslim terror, you're a Muslim terrorist.
So here you have a sitting Republican congressperson talking about Illhan Omar, another sitting congressperson, saying that she's a terrorist and saying that she supports Hamas, a terrorist organization, saying that she supports legislation or positions that would support Hamas, that would make her a Muslim terrorist. This is unacceptable. And, you know, you keep on hearing Republicans talk about how it's all the Democrats and their rhetoric. Everything is just getting out of control. You never see a Democrat speak like this about people on the other side of the aisle. It just doesn't happen. These Republicans are hypocritical losers that should be made fun of. And this type of rhetoric directed at your colleagues in Congress should be unacceptable. Every single one of these damn people should be voted out of office. Let's go to move on to Tom Homan. Here he is saying that, of course, we can racially profile people.
They don't need probable cause to walk up to somebody, briefly detain them, and question them. They just need the totality of the circumstances, right? They just got through the observation, you know, get articulable facts based on the location, the occupation, their physical appearance.
What? That's not how any of this works, Tom Homan, you dumbass. To think that you can walk up to somebody because they got brown skin and they might be in a particular neighborhood that you have identified for undocumented immigrants does not give you the right to briefly detain that person or temporarily detain that person. That is against the law. Racial profiling in this country is against the law. And somebody like Tom Homan, the so-called border czar, he should know that. He is an ex-law enforcement official. This is just, again, unacceptable shit coming from the other side of the aisle, coming from these MAGA Republicans. You have to have reasonable suspicion to do a temporary detainment like Tom Homan is talking about. And brown skin does not constitute reasonable suspicion. These people disgust me. Let's go to move on Rand Paul, where he's actually throwing jabs at the Republicans.
I want to get your take on what you just heard, another reconciliation package end of the year where they're going to try to get more spending cuts in there.
Well, it would require a special sort of surgical procedure where they would implant spines into members of the Republican caucus. I mean, they didn't have the spine to... They didn't have the spine to cut the spending a month ago. What makes you think they're all of a sudden going to have spine next week or in a month from now?
You know, I don't agree with Rand Paul on much, but I can agree with him on this. Republicans have just completely rolled over and will do whatever Donald Trump wants. I mean, just look at Josh Hawley and how he was railing against Medicaid and how we can't cut Medicaid from our constituents. It would be absolutely devastating. We can't do that. I will never vote for a bill like that. And then what does he do? He turns around and votes for the big despicable bill, which is going to cut up to 15 million people off of their health insurance. These people are weak, cowardly morons who only care about pleasing Donald Trump. They have abandoned all of their principles, all of their values. They never stand on any principle at all. And all they care about is making sure that they don't get in Daddy Trump's way. Again, pathetic losers. Every single one of them should be voted out of office. Here's Joel Webbon saying that he doesn't really like Pam Bondi, but it might not be for the reason that you think.
And I'd be like, yeah, but also I don't like Pam Bondi because she's a woman. And she shouldn't be in public. Not in politics. You know, like the meme is like, you and I are not the same. You don't like it for this reason. I don't like, it's like, oh, I don't like Pam Bondi because of her positions. I'm like, I don't like Pam Bondi because she needs to be at home.
What are you supposed to say to stuff like this. This is a Christian nationalist. Joel Webbon wants to turn our country into some theocratic state based on his twisted view of Christianity. And he is out there in public, no qualms about it, saying, yeah, Pam Bondi, I don't like her, but it's because she's a woman. She needs to be at home in the kitchen, bare feet and all, pregnant. She needs to make me a sandwich. These people are disgusting. These people are disgusting. They are literally trying to roll our country back to a time where women didn't have rights, before women's suffrage. This stuff, like I said, I don't know what to say or do about this kind of stuff. All I can think of is continue to push back against these terrible, terrible ideas. There is nothing wrong with a woman being out in public, participating in politics. They should have equal rights as me, everybody else in this country. And to think that we're just going to shove them back into the kitchen and everything's going to be honky-dory, it's just a load of shit. It's just a load of shit. Now, you guys may have also seen this photo floating around this week of Donald Trump's hand and his terrible concealer job, I guess is what you would call that. He obviously is trying to cover up a bruise here. If you look really closely, you can see kind of, I don't know, between kind of his knuckles, there's a little raised bump there. It looks like there could have maybe been an IV or maybe some blood was drawn here. Either way, this is the picture that's been going around, has been fueling, some health concerns about Donald Trump. And it's actually quite interesting because Caroline Leavitt actually came out and made a statement on his messed up hand. And you guys may have seen the other photo going around of his swollen ankles. And here's what she had to say about the hand.
Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin.
Does she expect us to believe this stuff? Shaking hands is what caused this giant bruise that took up nearly half of Donald Trump's hand. We're supposed to believe he just shakes a whole bunch of hands. I don't know what to tell you guys. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, and he takes aspirin. Everybody knows that when you take aspirin, you get these bruises on your hands. Give me a break, people. Now, the really interesting part about this, as laughable as her excuse is here, they actually mentioned it in a press briefing, which is unlike the Trump administration. Normally, it's just, oh yeah, Donald Trump's in perfect health. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know what you're talking about. So I find it really fascinating because she came prepared to this press conference with a pre-written note about this so-called medical condition. She also talked about his swollen legs and ankles, and it turns out he has some, I forgot what it's called, venous, I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but something to do with his veins in his legs, which is making his legs swell up. And, hopefully they actually release the medical documentation from an actual doctor, and we don't have to just trust Caroline Leavitt and her pre-written note. But I do find it completely fascinating that they actually came out in kind of a preemptive fashion to address these health concerns. So we definitely need to keep an eye on it because this is just out of character for this administration. Let's go to move on to the last clip, guys. We have Jasmine Crockett going on about how blue states are donor states, bailing out red states.
To be clear. In fact, I have another UC.
Without objection.
All right, blue states are bailing out red states. I have another UC.
Without objection.
Massachusetts sends more funding to the feds than any other state. It seems like blue states are constantly putting red states on life support, yet we got these little red states that ain't contributing nothing, but they are definitely taking up a lot of money. It is interesting because the governor in California, I don't know if you caught this, but Governor Newsom was talking about just holding on to his dollars because California is what they call a donor state, meaning that they actually contribute more than they take from the federal government. And then you can go down south to states like Louisiana who are broke, and so they need California to pay in. So it is so interesting that we are so concerned about whether or not we are pushing certain ideologies. But let me talk about some of these.
we have to continue hitting on this point. I am getting so sick and tired of Republicans going on and on and on about these blue cities, about these blue states, how they're out of control, they're poorly managed. But in reality, like she was just saying, California pays more out, pays more out than it takes in by $80 billion. If you look at the economic output of our country, I think it's over 70% comes from blue counties. I'm going to have to double check my numbers on that, but it's something around there. But this is absolutely true. The economic powerhouses in this country are in blue cities. That is where the majority of our economic output comes from. That is where the majority of the most talented people are. And that's not to say that we are bashing these red states. But what it is saying is, I'm getting real sick and tired of hearing threats about how Donald Trump is going to take away aid from California when they pay more into the system than they ever take out. And that goes the same for many blue cities all across our country. So to think that you're going to start taking away the funding that overwhelmingly comes from these blue areas, it's just kind of twisted. I have no qualms about my tax dollars going to somebody in a red state if that red state needs it. We talked about the Texas floods. I have no qualms with federal tax dollars going down there to prepare these people for these types of floods. I have no qualms about my tax dollars going to these disaster survivors. That's what the federal system is here to help for. So Republicans just need to give it a break. It's blue cities and blue states that contribute overwhelmingly when it comes to our economic output, when it comes to our tax base. People will like to point to Texas, but they take more from the federal government than they actually put in. I mean, and I think Jasmine Crockett does a really good job of pointing this out. And I think it's a point that we need to continue to hit on over and over and over and over and over again, because a lot of these red states wouldn't survive if it weren't for the contribution coming from these blue areas. I mean, it is just as simple as that. And they want to point to these blue cities like they're a bunch of hellholes with a whole bunch of crazy things going on. But they're more than happy to take federal dollars when they have budget shortfalls in their own state. So we need to continue to hit on this issue and really just start pushing back against these Republicans who continue to demonize and dehumanize anything that is not in 100% alignment with their worldview. That's where it's at. Anyway, guys, those are the clips that I had for you guys this week. Like I said, we have dropped it down to one video per week. That'll probably go on at least for the next little while here as I try to figure out how to post content to other platforms and see what types of formats and stuff we are trying to push out on those types of platforms. Also looking into different types of content, hopefully to get into some discussions or interviews in the near future. But like I said, we did launch a Substack this week. It would mean the world to me if you could provide some of that direct financial support, help me push back against this MAGA media machine. You can jump over to politiscape.substack.com and subscribe for as little as $5 a month. And like I said, it just helps us be a little bit more financially viable, helps us explore new kinds of content, whether that be the discussions or the interviews or the debates and all that good stuff. And like I said, I know you've heard the pitch 1,000 times over, but it really would mean the world to me. And like I said, fighting back against this MAGA media machine, it has got to be a team effort. So I will leave it there for now, guys. I hope everybody is enjoying their summer, like I said before, and I will see you guys next week.